Hey guys, Comic Boom back again to continue my top 50 countdown. We are going to be doing rankings number 29 down to 20 of my top 50 most sentimental comic books of all time. And these are comic books, again, to remind people, these are comic books that if they didn't exist, they would take away my love for the medium, because this is what really keeps me into comic books. And I've been collecting comic books, again, since around 1976. So I've been collecting a long time, over 40 years. And these are comic books that have resonated with me through the decades at various points in time. And without further ado, if you want to check out parts 1 and 2, they'll be in the description below. You can check them out. This is rankings number 29 to 20. So let's get to it. Coming in at number 29 is, this happens to be a key collector, a key comic, but not by design. It's just fantastic, and that is Wolverine number 1 by Chris Claremont and Frank Miller. You know, Chris Claremont, of course, he's a legend for the X-Men, and what he does here with Wolverine, he makes Wolverine be a very dangerous man. Wolverine is very good at what he does, but what he does is not very nice. That famous line starts here. Wow, boom. And Frank Miller on the art. Frank Miller, of course, helping to redefine Wolverine. Frank Miller redefined Batman. Frank Miller, amazing job influencing Marvel and DC. But aside from the historical aspect of it, this is just a fantastic story. This is why it's on my list, because this was an amazing story of Logan going to Japan for love, man. It ends with him marrying, a wedding date being set for, I think it was Mariko. Is that her name? Or I forget his love interest name. I'm a DC guy, not a Marvel zombie, but it ends with him, he goes to Japan to fight the father of the girl that he's in love with. And anyways, epic battles. Frank Miller's art's top notch here. Such a great series. Remember this fondly. Great. This is a classic. There's a reason why this is big up there on the spec. All right, so coming in at number 28 on my top 50 sentimental, Secret Wars. Secret Wars number 8, I could have chosen any issue. I chose this one because this is probably most familiar with people because it's on the spec. This is the Canadian variant newsstand edition, because as a Canadian, I didn't have a choice. When I go and bought my comics, I bought them in Canada, so everything's Canadian. So it's not like we have much, it's not like it's not like I could see the future. And by the way, back in the 80s, if I could have bought my comic books in a comic book shop in a direct sale market, I would have. Nobody in their right mind, when the direct sale comic book retailer outlets began to open up, nobody in their right mind would want to buy a newsstand. Why would you want to have that shitty barcode on your comic when you could have something else on there, like a Spider-Man face, right? Nobody wanted the newsstand. And I tried to avoid newsstands if I could, but I could never find a comic shop, so I had to buy the newsstand. And then, isn't it funny that after all these years now, here we are 4 decades later, it's now everybody wants the newsstands. Really? You have any idea how hard I went out of my way to avoid buying newsstands, but I couldn't? So I was forced to buy the newsstands, and now I guess I got a smile on my face. These Canadian price variants, this looks like a 9.8. Hey, it's probably worth. What is this worth, by the way? I don't know, but I'm happy. Let's put it that way. But that's purely by accident. Great comic. I remember the Secret Wars fondly because I also remember Marvel Contest of Champions. I remember that fondly. Marvel Fun and Games. I'd buy those comic books and draw on them and mark them up and play all the fun and games in Marvel Fun and Games. Hercules Prince of Power. I remember, God, I remember the early Scarlet Witch miniseries, all the early Marvel series like Machine Man issues 1 to 4. I remember all those things fondly from the 80s. I got them all still. I got them all here. I could bring them out. They're not in my top 50, but this is sort of reminiscent of all of them, so I thought I'd show it. Okay. All right, continuing on. Coming in at number 27 is Hitman. Garth Ennis and John McCree, man, Hitman, this is such a great series. If you guys if you're not familiar with Hitman, please pick it up. You could probably even still find this Hitman number 1, probably still in dollar bins, I would imagine. But This is, I remember DC back in the day. They had their vigilante Adrian Chase coming on the pages of Teen Titans. Not a particularly well written series, and he ends killing himself, coward that he is. And that series ended terribly. I remember wishing it was much better than it was. But Hitman, now of course we're talking decades later, along comes Hitman, Garth Ennis. Hitman is a guy who hangs out in a pub. He's got his Hitman friends. They go on these incredibly ridiculously dangerous missions where they have to kill. Obviously, he's a hitman, so his job is to take contracts and kill people, and it's a very dangerous lifestyle. And he acquires and has such crazy friends, and it's for such a crazy story that's ridiculously violent. It had such deep, good character moments, character development. And even though it has a tragic ending and it dies, because he has a violent life, so has a violent end, he goes out with the friends that he knows and he loves. And it's such a great series. I highly recommend it to everyone. And man, what more can I say? All right, coming in at number 26 is Wonder Woman issue 66, which begins her journey into the stars. Guys, Brian Boland's art on the covers here is fantastic. Now, I have bitch, whine, and complain about Wonder Woman so much. I've said before, I'm sounding like a broken record for those of you who follow my channel. I love Wonder Woman, but as much as I love Wonder Woman, I have frustration with Wonder Woman because she's the one character that I love. She's not my favorite character by any stretch, simply because she is unquestionably, consistently the worst written character that DC has ever had. If you want, you could get the best writer on the planet, and if you want to know the worst way that any skilled writer can write, put them on Wonder Woman and just wait. They'll show you their worst work. That's what Wonder Woman brings out. Wonder Woman brings out the worst in writers. I hate to say it, it's just true. Now that's me being so harsh. But Messner-Loebs, he got it right with the Space Saga. He had some stinkers. He had Wonder Woman, I think, work at Taco Wiz for a while. But the Space Saga was the best Wonder Woman story in 50, 60, 70 years. It just is. Wonder Woman, she ends up in a journey in space. She goes out to help some astronauts, gets basically kidnapped, imprisoned on a prison planet, and fighting for freedom. She helps free a bunch of females who are held captive by evil male captors on another planet. And it's fun. It embodies everything about Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman in space is such a natural fit. But DC is so stupid that they actually, when they want a gladiatorial story, they have Mongol. Somebody told Mongol that Superman is the greatest warrior on Earth, and so that's why Superman is on Warworld. Why in the hell would anybody send Superman is Clark Kent? Superman's pathetic. He's not a gladiator comp. You send Wonder Woman. And by the way, Sensational Comics number 2 has Wonder Woman be fighting in the gladiatorial arena against Artemis, with Mongol watching on. So that just came out a couple months ago. That's a fantastic story. And that sort of reminds me of this Space Saga, which is fantastic. Now, this also has a list of a whole string of Brian Boland covers here. This is the most famous, and I got everything that associated with this. There's a wonderful this is, I don't even know what the hell this is. I don't know what the hell you call these things. This is sort of like a fabric poster that I got, and I'm just gonna back up and show it to you here. I got this back in the day, but yeah, it's quite nice. I like it. Pretty good stuff. And there's that. I can throw that away. Okay. And then I also have, to go with the comic book, you need to have the statue, and it's a beautiful statue. And the thing is, I'm so glad I got the statue and everything associated with it, because it's a great story. It is one of the greatest stories of Wonder Woman that you'll read. Definitely one of the best, and it doesn't get near enough love. It should be something that is eating up the spec market, but it just doesn't, and it continues to piss me off that it doesn't. But hey, it's not up to me. It's up to the spec market, and it doesn't matter how crazy or ridiculous they are with their obsession with Marvel crap. The number of Marvel comic books that are on the spec market that are absolute garbage absolutely astonishes me. But hey, you know, I can't control other people's insanity. I just can't. So in any event, continuing on in issue number 25, ranking number 25 is Why the Last Man. I got this signed by Pia Guerra back in, back when it came out in 2002. In 2003, she was at a comic convention in Calgary. It says, Happy Trails, Pia Guerra. Why the Last Man is a fantastic series. It's good to hear that it's getting some love, and it's going to be, sorry for the reflection, but in any event, Why the Last Man, such a great series. It's got, unfortunately, Brian Vaughan. One of the things that Brian K. Vaughan is not very good at is his endings. The ending is one of the worst endings of a comic book series in the history of the medium, is the final issue of Why the Last Man. And I'm going to ruin it for people because it's such a stupid ending. In the very first issue of Why the Last Man, Yorick, young Yorick is, he's an escape artist, or he fancies himself an escape artist. He's not very good, and he's in a straitjacket, and that's in the very first page, and he's talking to his pet monkey, Ampersand. And on the final issue of Why the Last Man, because they need to repopulate the Earth, he's the last man, so they obviously need sperm from him to repopulate the Earth, because he's the last man, but he's basically held prisoner, and on the very final page, most of the plot lines are not resolved. It was a rushed ending. And then the final page, it just shows the straitjacket floating through the air, implying that Yorick escaped. He escapes his captors. And that's how it ends. Terrible ending. Very poor resolution. It's a great journey getting there. It's a great series. I love this series. But I love this series for two reasons. Number one, because the journey... It's the lesson that I got out of this series is that the most important thing about a story is the journey. So that even if the ending sucks, and make no mistake, this ending sucked big time. But even though the ending was terrible, the journey was worth it. Even though the ending was terrible, I have a much better ending in my head. Virtually every ending that Brian K. Vaughan does sucks. I expect Saga's ending will suck. Ex Machina was an ending that sucked. What was another one? Well, pick one. Pick anything by Brian K. Vaughan. The ending will suck. But he's really good at the journey getting to a terrible ending. What can I say? It is what it is. All right, so coming in at number 20. What am I at now? 25? No, I'm at number 24. Number 24 coming up. Sorry for that hiccup, guys. No, I had to find this issue. It wasn't. I forgot to put it on my list. I forgot to place it on top so it was easily accessible. So Thor, Mighty Thor number 705. It's actually Thor number 704. 04 is my favorite, but 705 is the only one I can find because I actually have it at the office. In any event, Jane Foster Thor. It's my favorite Thor run. It was Jane Foster that got me into Thor. I was never a fan of Thor. Never have. The character just never really resonated with me. Jane Foster Thor, though, by Jason Aaron, is such a heartfelt story. It's a story of a person's relationship with her gods. The story of Jane Foster losing her faith in the gods, losing her faith in Thor, and becoming Thor herself, and becoming worthy, being human and being worthy, and ultimately giving her life to save the gods themselves against the battle against Magog. And the fact that every time she became Thor, she would undo the chemotherapy against the cancer that was killing her in human form as Jane Foster. Such a fantastic story of love, power, redemption, heroism. And this issue 705 sort of embodies all that. Issue 704 and 705 both do. They both sort of tie, coming in at number 24 here, but just an epic story, and just has created for me a love for Jane Foster Thor, and even for Odinson Thor himself, despite his atrocious portrayal in Endgame as a fat, dilapidated pig that did a disservice to the character. But hey, I digress. Endgame was still an okay movie. That's sarcasm, by the way. Endgame is the greatest fantastic superhero movie of all time. I love Endgame. Absolutely love it. But continuing on, issue number 23, or ranking number 23 for me is Power Girl. Showcase presents number 97, Power Girl. Classic Joe Stratton cover. Wow. I've loved Power Girl ever since. And, ironically enough, her her chest isn't that exaggerated on this issue. I actually, believe it or not, as a young man, as a young boy, I just really got to love the character because she was like the Supergirl of Earth 2. And so she wasn't from our Earth. This was the Supergirl, a different, but she was Power Girl of Earth 2. And that's what made her all the more cool, because I loved. See, prior to the original Crisis on Infinite Earths, which is also going to be on my list later on, I never found that DC Universe was that complicated to understand. The DC Universe had continuity even before the original Crisis on Infinite Earths. And it was funny that as a young man, a young teenager, I didn't find it confusing. There was Earth 1, Earth 2, Earth 3, Earth 4. There was Earth 10, which otherwise Earth X with the Freedom Fighters. It wasn't complicated. Earth 1 was our superheroes. Earth 2 was the Justice Society. Earth 3 was the Crime Syndicate. Earth 10 was Freedom. Again, it wasn't complicated. And then Power Girl, of course, was on Earth 2, and it was awesome. I don't have her first appearance. My first exposure to her was in this issue, and I absolutely love it. Classic cover and classic 3 issues. I think because it was 97, 98, and 99 that she was in this Showcase Presents. All right, continuing on. Now coming in at number 22. Issue 22. Can't drop these issues. But coming in at issue 92 is Birds of Prey number 68. And this is a little protection doesn't hurt. Why do I love this issue? I love this issue basically because Huntress has sex with a teenage boy. Just kidding. He's actually, I think he just turned 18. He looks young though, right? But this issue was controversial because, see, the thing is with Huntress, this issue was, it should have been more controversial than it was. It was written by Gail Simone, and it was the Huntress rewarding a young boy. I'm going to say he's 18 just so it wasn't too risque. I remember him, though, actually being like 17, a little under 18. But the Birds of Prey need information, and this kid's got the information. And this kid is a really sweet kid, and he immediately thinks all the Birds of Prey are hot. They're all gorgeous, and he particularly has a crush on the Huntress, and they want information. And this kid wants to give him the information, but he has a deal. He says, well, I'll give you the information you're looking for, but I want to have a date with you, he says to the Huntress. Let me go on a date with the Huntress, and I'll tell you what you need to know. And he's not an evil kid. He's just a kid who's got a crush. And they obviously could have tortured it out of him, but they didn't do that. And so they just agreed to go. Huntress agreed to go on a date with him. And it's implied in this issue. It's such a great issue, wonderfully written by Gail Simone. It's implied in this issue that maybe she had, they actually had sex. And so it was, whether it happened or not, whether you think it happened or not, that really isn't the point. The point is, it was just a fun issue, and it's the ultimate wish fulfillment. Some teenage kid just on the cusp of adulthood goes on a date with the Huntress, an actual superhero. I mean, who doesn't dream of that? Nowadays with cosplay, we don't have to dream about it. It happens all the time. But anyways, I've always loved this issue, and that's why it's on the list. Again, Birds of Prey number issue 68. Coming out in August 2004, cover date. Alrighty then. Coming in at issue 21. Issue 21 is... Man, the comic books are just dropping like flies here. Issue 21 is Liberty Meadows, Frank Cho's Liberty Meadows, The Wedding Album. I've got, before Frank Cho really made a name for himself with Liberty Meadows. And the Liberty Meadows series, man, I'm missing maybe 2 or 3 of those early issues of Liberty Meadows. But for the most part, I got pretty much all of them. There's even like hardcover forms There's even a giant hardcover reproduction of Liberty Meadows that I got. I had Frank Cho sign, and he drew a picture inside of it. I could probably find it if I went back, but I got to tell you, man, it's been kind of a pain in the ass putting all this, trying to find these comics, my top 50. It's taken me a long time to sort of reflect on this and then find the comics just to pull them and show them to you. But I thought I'd do that. But in any event, Liberty Meadows, great series. I wish Frank Cho would bring the series back a little bit and continue to do the strips on them. I think if he brought this back, this is something that should be on the spec market. These are amazing issues. I don't know why more people aren't collecting Liberty Meadows. They're in every comic book shop. The print runs were not that high that I recall, and they're well worth getting. They're black and white. There's not too many. I don't think they were never in color. They were always in black and white. But such a fantastic series, and basically it has to do with Liberty Meadows in this issue. She ends up marrying, I can't even remember the guy's name, but he was sort of like the guy in the series that I was at a crush on her, and he was always jealous of her dating other guys. And it was a classic story of a nice guy finishing first, and so great to read. So there you go, Liberty Meadows. That's at number 21. All right, coming in at number 20 on this my top 50 sentimental is Batman and Robin issue 38 by Tomasi and Gleason. This is Damian Wayne at his best. Guys, I always say that I credit Grant Morrison for bringing back Damian Wayne, because Grant Morrison introduced, well, I guess the birth of Damian Wayne in the classic, or rather, he reintroduced Damian Wayne. Batman and Talia al Ghul had a child together in the classic Son of the Demon classic hardcover, which is excellent. Yeah, when I say classic hardcover, I mean this series here. This was Son of the Demon by Mike W. Barr and Jerry Bingham, graphic novel. I remember this so fondly. I remember buying this. This is one of my earliest hardcovers, and it's absolutely gorgeous. The art, in any event, in this original story, Batman ends up defeating Ra's al Ghul. Ra's al Ghul tries to recruit him for being his next right-hand man or whatever. He ends up sleeping with Talia al Ghul, and it ends with the birth of a child that years later Grant Morrison would introduce Damian Wayne, and of course we'd have the classic Batman and Robin series. And I should say here that there is more that can be said here. There's more classic issues that I could show. This one in particular, Batman and Robin. Because, of course, and sorry for the reflection there, but Nightwing was, Dick Grayson was Batman for a while with Damian Wayne. The series with Batman and Robin by Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely, fantastic series. Then, of course, Patrick Gleason and Peter Tomasi came along, and they did an amazing job. Grant Morrison made me like Damian Wayne. Tomasi and Gleason made me love him. And wow, these really tie for 20 on my list. Fantastic series. And guys, there you have it. So that is my list, part 3 of 5, from rankings number 29 down to 20. Thanks for watching this, and I'll soon have my rankings from issues 19 down to issue 10 before we get to the final, I guess the final top 10 or whatever. So in any event, guys, thanks for watching, and until next time, you'll see me in a bit, because I'm going to be posting these one after the other. So we'll catch you later.